I met Jessica at a friend's wedding in Portland 8 years ago. Her smile lit up the room, and we connected immediately. 6 years of marriage felt like a fairy tale, until that day, I came home to find half her clothes gone, and a note saying she had left with David, my business partner of 10 years. My world shattered completely. Now, after 2 years of rebuilding my life, I received a call I never expected. Jessica wants to come back, claiming David died in an accident. Before I continue this unbelievable story, let me know where you're watching from, and hit that subscribe button to join me on this emotional journey. I was 35 when my life changed forever. I had built a successful custom furniture business in Portland, working with my hands to create pieces that would become part of people's homes and lives. When I met Jessica at my college friend's wedding, I never imagined how completely she would transform my world. She was standing by the bar looking slightly uncomfortable as someone who didn't know many guests. Her dark hair fell past her shoulders, and when she smiled at something the bartender said, I felt drawn to her immediately. I introduced myself, and we spent the entire reception talking. She was intelligent, witty, and passionate about her work as an elementary school teacher. Our romance moved quickly after that. I took her to all my favorite spots around Portland, Powell's Books, where we spent hours exploring different sections, the Japanese garden, where we had our first kiss under a maple tree, and weekend trips to Cannon Beach, where we walked barefoot along the shore. 3 months later, I knew she was the one. I planned an elaborate proposal at Multnomah Falls, getting down on one knee, with the waterfall thundering behind us. Tears streamed down her face as she said yes, and strangers around us applauded. Our wedding in Willamette Valley wine country was everything we hoped for. Jessica wore a simple white dress that made her look ethereal as she walked down the aisle toward me. Our friends and family surrounded us, and I remember thinking I had never been happier than in that moment when we were pronounced husband and wife. We bought a house in a quiet neighborhood in the suburbs, a craftsman-style home with a yard big enough for the children we planned to have. Jessica decorated it with care, adding personal touches that made it feel like ours. We painted walls together on weekends, planted a small garden, and hosted dinner parties where everyone commented on how perfect we seemed together. David had been my business partner since we started our furniture company right after college. He was the business brain, while I was the creative force. 12. It worked perfectly. He managed our finances, handled client relations, and made sure everything ran smoothly, while I focused on design and craftsmanship. When David and Jessica first met at our company Christmas party, they were polite but distant with each other. Jessica would occasionally stop by the workshop with lunch for me, and their interactions were always friendly but formal. I never noticed anything that would have given me pause. Looking back now, there were signs I missed. Jessica started staying out later, claiming girls' nights or school functions. She joined a gym and became more conscious about her appearance, buying new clothes and changing her hairstyle. At the time, I thought she was just taking care of herself and enjoying her independence. There was one evening that now stands out clearly in my memory. We had invited David over for dinner to celebrate landing a major client. Throughout the meal, I noticed Jessica and David exchanging glances when they thought I wasn't looking. There was something in those looks that should have alerted me, but I dismissed it. These were the two people I trusted most in the world, my wife and my best friend. How could I have suspected anything? Our last anniversary before everything fell apart was magical. I surprised Jessica with a weekend getaway to a boutique hotel in the Columbia River Gorge. We hiked during the day and enjoyed fine dining in the evenings. She seemed genuinely happy, telling me how much she loved me and our life together. I had no idea that in just a few weeks that life would be shattered beyond recognition. I remember the day everything fell apart with painful clarity. It was a Tuesday in April, and I had been working late at the workshop, finishing a commission for an important client. When I finally got home around 9 p.m., the house felt different somehow, quieter, emptier. I called out for Jessica, but received no answer. Moving through our house, I noticed small things missing. Her favorite books from the shelf, the throw blanket she always curled up with on the couch. When I opened her closet, my stomach dropped. Half of her clothes were gone. On the kitchen counter, I found a note in her handwriting. The words hit me like physical blows. "Karl, I can't do this anymore. I've been unhappy for a long time. David and I have fallen in love. We're leaving together. I'm sorry. Jessica. I read the note over and over, unable to comprehend what I was seeing. My wife and my business partner, I grabbed my phone and called Jessica repeatedly, but it went straight to voicemail each time. I called David with the same result. Driven by disbelief and rage, I drove to David's apartment across town. The lights were off, and no one answered when I pounded on the door. A neighbor came out and told me David and a woman had left earlier that day with suitcases, looking in a hurry. The next day at the workshop, I discovered something even worse. David had been systematically embezzling from our business for months. Business accounts were drained, client payments diverted. He had been planning this, preparing for a new life with my wife, using money he had stolen from me. The weeks that followed were the darkest of my life. I barely slept, existing on coffee, and whatever food friends forced me to eat. I lost 20 pounds in a month. Every time my phone rang, I lunged for it, hoping it was Jessica calling to say it had all been a terrible mistake. I contacted Jessica's family, who seemed as shocked as I was. They hadn't heard from her, and were equally confused about her sudden departure. Her mother cried on the phone, apologizing to me, as if it were somehow her fault. When I went to the police, they were sympathetic but unhelpful. Jessica was an adult who had left willingly, they explained. There was no crime in leaving your husband, no matter how cruel the method. They took a report about David's embezzlement, but warned me that financial crimes between business partners were often difficult to prosecute. Desperate for answers, I hired a private investigator. After 2 weeks, he reported that Jessica and David had crossed into Mexico, then seemingly vanished. They had closed their social media accounts and changed their phone numbers. It was as if they had disappeared off the face of the earth. 6 months after they left, Jessica posted a single photo on a new private Instagram account that one of our mutual friends showed me. It was Jessica and David on a beach somewhere, tropical drinks in hand, smiling broadly at the camera. No location was tagged. They looked happy, unburdened by the destruction they had left behind. Meanwhile, our furniture business was on the brink of collapse. Without David handling the business side, and with the financial damage he had done, I was struggling to keep the doors open. Clients were nervous about unfilled orders. Employees were worried about their jobs, and I was working 16-hour days trying to hold everything together while processing the devastating personal betrayal. The financial strain was immense. I had to take out a loan against my house just to make payroll. Some of our clients requested refunds I couldn't afford to give. Long-term contracts were canceled as news of the company's instability spread through Portland's tight-knit design community. Even more painful was the social fallout. Friends we had shared as a couple seemed to vanish from my life. Some took sides, believing there must have been 2 sides to the story. Others simply found my grief and anger too uncomfortable to be around. The dinner parties and weekend gatherings that had filled our social calendar disappeared, leaving me isolated in my pain. I hit rock bottom about 3 months after Jessica and David left. The business was failing. I was drinking too much, and I had pushed away most of the people who tried to help me. One night I passed out in my workshop, surrounded by wood shavings and an unattended space heater. I woke to the smell of burning wood. A piece of sandpaper had caught fire. If I hadn't woken when I did, I could have lost everything, including my life. That near miss was my wake-up call. The next morning, with my head pounding from a hangover, I looked at myself in the mirror and barely recognized the hollow-eyed, unkempt man staring back at me. I made a decision then and there. I would not let Jessica and David's betrayal define the rest of my life. I found a therapist who specialized in betrayal trauma. Dr. Harper helped me understand that my feelings of rage, humiliation, and grief were natural responses to the double betrayal I had experienced. She gave me tools to process these emotions without letting them consume me. In those weekly sessions, I slowly began to rebuild my sense of self. Through Dr. Harper, I found a divorce support group. Meeting others who had experienced similar betrayals helped me feel less alone. There was Tom, whose wife had left him for his brother, Maria, whose husband had a secret second family, and several others whose stories were just as painful as mine. We supported each other through the hard days and celebrated small victories together. The The business needed a fresh start as much as I did. I placed an ad for a new partner and was fortunate to meet Amanda, a talented woodworker with a background in business administration. She brought new energy and ideas to the workshop, and her confidence in our potential helped me rediscover my passion for the craft. Amanda suggested we rebrand completely, new name, new logo, new focus. We shifted from mass-produced furniture to high-end custom pieces with a story behind them. This attracted a different clientele, people who valued artistry and were willing to pay for it. 6 months after Amanda joined, we landed a contract to furnish a boutique hotel that was being featured in Architectural Digest. That project put us back on the map. As the business stabilized, I began rebuilding other aspects of my life. I established clear boundaries with people no longer willing to be a doormat. I developed new routines, morning runs along the Willamette River, evening woodworking classes, where I rediscovered the joy of creating without pressure, weekend hikes in Forest Park. About a year after Jessica left, a friend set me up on a blind date with Sophia, who owned a small, independent bookstore downtown. Our first date was awkward. I was rusty and nervous, still carrying the weight of betrayal. But Sophia was patient and kind, never pushing for more than I could give. We started slow, meeting for coffee once a week, then dinner, then weekend outings. I struggled to open up emotionally, constantly fighting the fear that I would be hurt again. There were moments I pulled away, canceled plans, created distance when things started feeling too real. Sophia gave me space but didn't disappear. Her consistency gradually helped me rebuild my capacity for trust. 1 year and 2 months after Jessica left, I laughed genuinely for the first time. Sophia and I were at a comedy club, and something about the comedian's joke about dating disasters hit just right. The laughter bubbled up from somewhere deep inside me, surprising us both. Sophia squeezed my hand, tears in her eyes, knowing what a milestone it was. I decided to reclaim my house, the one Jessica and I had shared. Room by room, I repainted, replaced furniture, changed the artwork. What had once been our space slowly became mine. I converted what would have been a nursery into a home office where I could sketch new furniture designs. The garden, which had died from neglect during my darkest days, was replanted with native Oregon plants that required minimal care but brought color back to the yard. My new daily routine became a source of strength. I would wake early, meditate for 10 minutes using techniques Dr. Poplik Harper had taught me, go for a run, then head to the workshop. Evenings were for reading, taking classes at the community college, or spending time with Sophia and the new friends I had made through the local artisan community. Those new friendships were different from my old ones, more authentic, less based on social performance. There was Jack, a glassblower who had overcome addiction; Mia, a ceramic artist raising 2 kids alone; and Luis, a retired teacher who had taken up woodworking in his 60s. They knew my story and accepted me as I was, without expectation or judgment. The moment I realized I had truly moved on came unexpectedly. I was at a craft fair where our company had a booth. A customer commented that one of my pieces reminded her of something she had seen in David's section of our old showroom. I was able to acknowledge the similarity, explain that he had been my former partner, and move the conversation forward without a hint of the pain that had once dominated my life. That night, I told Sophia I was ready to say I loved her for the first time. It was an ordinary Tuesday morning when everything changed again. I was in the workshop discussing a new commission with Amanda when my phone rang with an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, thinking it was just another sales call. "Hello," I said, distracted by the design sketches in front of me. "Karl." The voice on the other end made my blood run cold. After 2 years, I would still recognize Jessica's voice anywhere. "Jessica," I managed to say, motioning to Amanda that I needed privacy. I stepped outside into the parking lot, my heart pounding. "Why are you calling me?" Her voice broke as she spoke. "Karl, something terrible has happened. David is dead. There was a boating accident last month." I didn't know who else to call. I leaned against the wall, struggling to process what I was hearing. David was dead. Jessica was alone, and she had called me of all people. "I'm so sorry, Karl," she continued, her words tumbling out between sobs. "For everything. I've thought about you every day since I left. I know what we did was unforgivable, but I need to see you. I'm back in Portland. Can we meet, please? My mind raced with conflicting emotions. Anger that had dulled to a background hum suddenly flared hot again. Curiosity about what had happened in the 2 years since she vanished with David, and buried beneath layers of pain and healing a tiny flicker of the love I once felt for her. I need to think about this. I told her, neither agreeing nor refusing outright. I'll call you back at this number. That evening I had an emergency session with Dr. Harper, explaining the unexpected contact from Jessica. She helped me work through my jumbled reactions and consider what I wanted from any potential meeting. You're not the same man she left, Dr. Harper reminded me. You've rebuilt your life. Meeting with her doesn't mean going backward, unless you choose that path. What do you hope to gain from seeing her? It was a good question. Closure, perhaps. Answers to questions that had haunted me during sleepless nights. Or maybe just the chance to show her that her betrayal hadn't destroyed me after all. When I told Sophia about Jessica's call, she was supportive but concerned. We had been dating for almost a year now, and our relationship had grown solid and trusting. She didn't try to tell me what to do, but asked thoughtful questions about what I was feeling. Just be careful with your heart, she said, holding my hand across her kitchen table. Whatever you decide, I'm here for you. After 2 days of deliberation, I called Jessica back and agreed to meet at a coffee shop downtown, neutral territory, with plenty of people around. When I arrived, I spotted her immediately sitting at a corner table looking out the window. She was thinner than I remembered, with dark circles under her eyes that makeup couldn't quite conceal. But she was still beautiful in the way that familiar things are beautiful. A landscape from childhood, a melody that brings back memories. Thank you for coming, she said, as I sat down across from her. Her hands trembled slightly as she held her coffee cup. Jessica explained that she and David had spent the last 2 years moving around. First Mexico, then Costa Rica, finally settling in a small beach town in Brazil. The first few months had been exciting, she claimed, like an extended vacation funded by the money David had stolen from our business. But then things changed, she said, looking down at her hands. David became controlling. He didn't want me to make friends or talk to locals too much. He was paranoid that someone would recognize us, or that you would somehow find us. She described how David had invested their remaining money in risky ventures that failed one after another. As their funds dwindled, so did his affection for her. He became emotionally abusive, blaming her for their situation, telling her that she had ruined both their lives by not being satisfied with what she had. I felt trapped, Jessica said, tears welling in her eyes. We were in a foreign country. I didn't speak the language well. I had no money of my own. I had burned all my bridges back home. According to Jessica, David had been drinking heavily when he took a small boat out alone one night during a storm. The boat capsized, and his body washed up on shore the next morning. Local authorities ruled it an accident, though Jessica implied it might have been something else. After the funeral, I realized I had nowhere to go, except back here, she continued. My parents wouldn't take my calls. I had no friends left. But I never stopped thinking about you, Karl, about the life we had, the happiness before I threw it all away. She reached across the table and placed her hand over mine. I fought the urge to pull away. I know it's asking the impossible, but do you think there's any chance we could try again? I've changed. I understand now what I gave up. I've never stopped loving you. I looked into her eyes, searching for the woman I had once built my life around. Instead, I saw desperation and calculation behind the tears. Something didn't feel right. Could I see our old house? She asked suddenly. Just once for closure. If nothing else, I miss it so much. A warning bell rang in my mind. The house she had willingly abandoned was now worth considerably more than when she left, thanks to Portland's booming real estate market. And since we were still legally married when she disappeared, she might have a claim to it. I need some time to think about all this, I told her, withdrawing my hand from hers. It's a lot to process. As I walked away from the coffee shop, I called Tom from my support group, who was now a good friend and happened to be a private investigator. I asked him to do some checking on Jessica's story about David's death. 3 days after meeting Jessica, I had the answers I needed. Tom had contacts in Brazil who confirmed that David wasn't dead at all. He had been arrested for investment fraud and was currently in a Brazilian prison, serving a 3-year sentence. Jessica had been left without access to their bank accounts when authorities froze their assets. I arranged to meet Jessica one last time at an upscale restaurant downtown. I arrived early and requested a quiet table in the corner. When she entered, she was wearing a new dress and had styled her hair the way I used to like it. The calculated effort wasn't lost on me. "You look nice," I said as she sat down. "I wanted to look good for you," she replied, reaching for my hand across the table. I kept my hands firmly in my lap. "Jessica, before we go any further, I need to ask you something," I said calmly. "When exactly did David die?" She blinked rapidly, then composed her features into an expression of grief. "It was 3 weeks ago, the 27th. Why do you ask?" I nodded slowly, then placed a folder on the table between us. "That's interesting because according to Brazilian court records, David attended a hearing on the 30th. Hard to do when you're dead." The color drained from Jessica's face. "I can explain. David isn't dead," I continued. "He's in prison for fraud. And you didn't come back because you had a change of heart. You came back because you ran out of money and options." Her expression changed then, the mask of the grieving girlfriend falling away to reveal cold calculation. "Fine. Yes. David got himself arrested and they froze all our accounts. I had nothing. What was I supposed to do?" "You could have told the truth," I said. "You could have asked for help without the manipulation." "Would you have helped me if I had?" she demanded. "After what I did to you, I considered this for a moment. I don't know, but I would have respected your honesty." Jessica's eyes filled with tears, but this time I recognized them as weapons, not genuine emotion. We were good together once, Karl. We could be again. I know I made a terrible mistake. The house is still half mine legally. We could start over. I still know how to make you happy. I looked at the woman I had once loved more than anything, seeing her clearly perhaps for the first time. "You know what's strange, Jessica? 2 years ago, I would have given anything to hear you say you wanted to come back. I was destroyed when you left. But sitting here now, I feel nothing but pity for you." Her expression hardened. "You've changed." "Yes," I agreed. "I have, and that's a good thing." I signaled the waiter and paid for the drinks we had ordered. Then I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out an envelope. "This is a plane ticket to your parents' city, and $500 cash. I called your mother yesterday. Despite everything, she's willing to take you in until you get back on your feet. That's more generosity than you deserve, but families are complicated that way." Jessica stared at the envelope, her carefully constructed facade crumbling. "You don't understand what it's been like for me." "Maybe not," I acknowledged. "But I know what it was like for me when you and David betrayed me. The difference is that I didn't try to use someone else to fix my problems. I rebuilt my life on my own terms. I stood up to leave, feeling a weight lifting that I hadn't even realized I was still carrying. I forgive you, Jessica. Not because you deserve it, but because I deserve peace. I wish you well, but we will never speak again after today." As I walked out of the restaurant, I felt truly free for the first time in years. The remaining threads that had tied me to my past with Jessica were finally cut. When I got home that night, Sophia was waiting on my porch with takeout from our favorite Thai restaurant. I told her everything that had happened, holding nothing back. "I'm proud of you," she said when I finished, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "That couldn't have been easy." "Actually, it was," I replied, surprised to find it was true. For the first time since she left, I looked at Jessica and felt nothing but compassion for someone who is lost. The anger is gone. In the months that followed, life took on a richness I hadn't thought possible after Jessica's betrayal. The business continued to thrive, and Amanda and I were invited to showcase our work at a prestigious furniture exposition. We won an award for innovative design, bringing national attention to our small Portland workshop. My relationship with Sophia deepened into something more profound than what I had shared with Jessica. Built on honesty, mutual respect, and genuine care, we moved forward together at a pace that felt right for both of us. After another 6 months, I asked her to move in, and we began merging our lives with intentionality and joy. The journey through betrayal and back to wholeness taught me lessons I never expected to learn. I discovered that resilience isn't about never falling. It's about rising again after you've been knocked down. I learned that trust once broken can be rebuilt, but it requires conscious choice and courage from both sides. Most importantly, I found that true healing doesn't come from external validation or revenge, but from internal growth and self-compassion. Looking back at the man I was before Jessica left, I see someone who defined himself through others' perceptions. The betrayal forced me to find my own worth, independent of anyone else's validation. In losing what I thought was essential to my happiness, I found a more authentic version of myself. What would you do if someone who betrayed you deeply suddenly reappeared in your life asking for another chance? Would you listen to your head or your heart? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe for more real-life experiences. Your support means everything as we navigate these complex human journeys together. Remember, sometimes the most painful chapters of our lives become the foundation for something far better than we could have imagined.